All right, hello everyone and welcome. My name's John and today I want to walk you through transitioning a plant from soil into passive hydroponics. So I've done this a lot and I have some pro tips for you and I want to show you how I go about it. So this is the most basic method where you have a pot in a saucer and it works super well. These will both drop down in here and so I can use this nice cement planter for passive hydro. The cement itself is too porous. It'll absorb the water and then it'll leak out. So I have to have the saucer in here. So the other thing we need is a soil screen. You don't need these for soil, but for the mixture of passive hydro, the particles I'm using are too small. They will all fall through these holes here. So I gotta make sure that is in there. The way I make these is to just place the screen here, I cut a square, and then I trim around until it drops in and sits pretty flat. Then of course I want to make sure I have my new mixture ready to go. Currently I'm testing out this blend that's equal parts turface and pumice. Of course there are many things you could choose as your hydroponic growing medium, but I'm not going to get into all of that in this video. So this is the one I'm trying and I'll let you know how it goes later on. Okay, so now we're ready for the most difficult part of everything, of this whole process, getting the plant out of the soil. So I have a bin here to capture the soil and I have a root pick to make getting this off easier. If the soil is totally dry, then when you try to take it off, it might rip the roots out with it. So it needs to be a little moist. This still has a trace amount of moisture in it, so it should be pretty solid. If I was really struggling with this, one thing that I've done in the past is I would fill this with like a little bit of water or a bucket, have this all nice and moist, and you can pick it apart with your fingers pretty easily that way. Okay, so we're gonna get in here, start picking this apart. Okay, so got all the soil off and the roots look really good. There's all kinds of new growth tips like on all sides. So next step is to take the new pot and add our base layer. So when I put this in the reservoir, there's gonna be some amount that is staying submerged and I don't want any of these roots to be down in that water. Eventually the roots will grow into it and they'll be fine, but these are soil roots. They don't wanna be sitting in water like that. So I've tried to fill this about halfway, which is ideal if you have the space. Then I'm gonna fan these roots out because I wanna get them growing in all directions. So take this, pour it in. Okay, so let's make sure this is standing up. So then I'm gonna actually hold the plant with my fingers and shake a little bit. Let some of that work its way into the root system, and we are looking good. Now we can work on the second one. All right, so it's time for round two. Okay, so this should be a lot easier because this is a mixture I mixed myself, whereas that other one was fresh from the nursery a few weeks ago. So this stuff is pretty chunky and delicious. So you can just use your fingers and like literally tickle it off. The root pick is definitely easier, but not required. Okay, so now we do the same thing again. Soil screen, base layer. Fan out the roots, pour in the media. settle it in. Okay, now, so to make your plant's transition easier, here is what you can do. Since I just repotted this in here, the roots have had no chance to like grow into anything. They're not grabbing anything. They haven't reached between the particles. They're just sitting there covered in this new growing media. So while I will be growing these with a reservoir, and I can use the reservoir right away and it will help keep this stuff moist, the best way to transition is to water these from above every day for a week or so. When you water from above, you're getting fresh water and that pulls fresh oxygen in. So those roots will be super hydrated and aerated, and that downward flow is going to encourage the roots to grow down into the reservoir. Now this is totally optional, you don't have to do it, but it will keep these plants so much happier in that transition. And as they actually grow into the media, they will reach into the reservoir, they'll adapt to that beautifully. And that is going to give them the smoothest and greatest chance for success. Now, I don't always do that, and a lot of times, because I always want things to be as simple as possible, I will just fill this reservoir to the appropriate level and call it good. But this transition can be tough, and watering from above every day or every other day for like the first week, 10 days or so, is going to give these plants such a good head start. So if you're worried about it, I would recommend that for sure. Okay, so everything we've done so far, standard. You got to do those steps. So now for just some pro tips and advice. I tried to plant these about halfway up because that means I can maximize this reservoir. Sometimes you won't be able to, but you need like at least an inch so that you can have a decent layer of water, or else you're adding water all the time and it kind of defeats the purpose of this setup. This media, pumice and turfis blend, it's pretty heavy, so you could probably get away with potting like 2/3 of the way up, depending on how your root system to pot size ratio is looking. But you gotta go with whatever you're using, make sure it's nice and stable as best you can. Okay, last step is if you can somehow give these plants like better conditions for a while, put them in a greenhouse cabinet or something like that, that's going to help. And also, if these plants normally are getting some direct light, which neither of these want direct light, after a repot, these plants are going to be losing moisture. They're not going to be uptaking it as efficiently until they grow into here. So I want to move these back so that they're just getting that indirect light or artificial light only until you see them actually perk up. All right, so don't these look good together? Okay, so the last thing is do not give these any fertilizer for a while. That just takes more energy for them to process it. They should have plenty of nutrients stored up. So just want to use nice fresh water, get those roots growing, and then maybe in 2 weeks or so, I'll give them a light dose of fertilizer. Okay, so I just gotta go water these in and they'll be good to go. So I hope you really enjoyed this guide and I hope you found this helpful. If you have questions or concerns, just drop me a note in the comments. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you back here again real soon. Peace.